I'm going to ask you a question I never thought I'd ask. Can the best iPhone beat the best Chinese phone? And sure, vice versa. I mean, remember the Dark Knight?
I recommend you buy American.
Back in the 2010s, I'd say the iPhone 4 was my favorite camera, only for Samsung and LG to take over later. And yeah, Chinese phones were merely a cheap alternative on our radar. I seriously refused to review Huawei phones up until the P20 Pro and that Leica collaboration changed my opinion. Then Xiaomi continued on that mantle, all while Vivo partnered with Zeiss to seriously beat everyone last year with the X200 Pro. Right now, word on the street is that the hottest phone is the OPPO Find X9 Pro, and don't just take my word for it, it just won a ton of awards. The launch has been so bold that there are even dream accessories involved. So the question truly is, just how much better are these Chinese phones when compared to what America can do with the best iPhone? I'm Jaime Rivera, and let's find out. Sponsored by ESR. Stick around to learn how ESR augments one of the coolest tricks with this iPhone 17 Pro Max. This is a complicated comparison because most of you won't be able to buy the OPPO in the United States. So instead of considering this as a buyer's guide, think of this as the best way to know if all the hype is real and if we're really missing out on much. I'll start comparing them as phones before I get to the cameras, as Chinese companies haven't just excelled in one department. Hardware alone is probably the hardest way to prove differences given Apple's recent changes. Both phones are large and in charge when you try to handle them, and each is made of aluminum and glass. Ceramic Shield is rated as superior on the iPhone when compared to the Gorilla Glass Victus 2, but OPPO's finish is considered more resilient. I'll give more points to Apple for its bold new approach to colors, but I actually find the Find X9 Pro to be more elegant. OPPO also has a more efficient design with a device that's shorter, narrower, and thinner, leading to nearly 10 grams less in weight, which doesn't really sound like a big deal up until you consider what's on the inside. See, the OPPO Find X9 Pro has things most phones would only dream of. Let's start with the insane 7,500 mAh battery. I'm not even kidding, nearly 50% more juice than the iPhone at less weight, with double the wireless charging speeds, though I know all these accessories are now optional on both. Apple's A19 Pro and MediaTek's Dimensity 9500 both run on the latest 3nm N3P node, with the iPhone leading in single-core CPU while the Dimensity on multi-core and GPU performance. RAM is nearly the same, with variations on higher tiers and connectivity being comparable, though yeah, I'm not sure if the Find X9 Pro will perform on all US carriers if you were to import it. And then there's the topic of these displays. OPPO has nailed the same in-your-face look that Apple brought with the iPhone since the 16 Pro series, now with crazy sharp bezels. There are technically very similar panels in both capabilities and performance, with OPPO being a tad brighter in certain scenarios, but not all of them.
Solution for a table wobble, and the matte on the aluminum.
Seriously, for content consumption, I wouldn't even know which one to call a winner, as they are both very similar and pretty great.
Anyone that wants an added splash of elegance.
But then the iPhone also includes another perk I wish OPPO would stop making optional through a case, and that's MagSafe. Magnets built in don't just mean you don't need to use a case to take advantage of the modularity of added accessories, but also in taking advantage of new charging standards like Qi 2.2. That said, not sure if you knew, but not all wireless chargers are created equal, with most being super slow given the heat or space constraints. To take full advantage of what this iPhone can do, you need the best solution out there, and that's where today's sponsor ESR comes to the rescue. Their new OmniLock magnetic charger is probably the only option I know of to be Qi 2.2 certified, giving you the full 25 watts of fast charging, all while keeping your phone cool through ESR's Cryo Boost technology, which is the only way to guarantee charging speed reliability. That means up to 60% of battery top-up in just 30 minutes for this iPhone. You can mount it easily on any of your car's vents. It brings a shock-absorbing silicone pad matched with an upgraded metal clip clip and an over-tightening prevention lock to ensure it stays in place while protecting your car. You can rotate it to any convenient position, and its N52 magnets guarantee your phone will remain attached no matter what. There's even a 58-watt dual-port car charger in the box, so you have more than enough juice for other devices as well. Guys, listen, I've been an ESR customer way before the sponsorship, and it's because their quality and price points are just too good. Follow the first link in the description to give ESR a try. Now, software is probably the most controversial portion of this comparison because, well, ColorOS does borrow a lot from iOS. I frankly couldn't care less, though, mainly because that's a huge oversimplification. I actually appreciate how OPPO adds a ton of flexibility into the experience, from the side menu with easy access not just to applications but also a file drawer, to the fact that OPPO figured out AirDrop with iPhones and the Mac through O+ Connect before even Google did. Seriously, software is something this company does right. The new multitasking gestures in Android 16 were done by OPPO first. Sure, we have a dynamic island clone, and yes, there's also an action button they call the snap key, but I do like how the company gives you the option for a full AI environment that piggybacks between OPPO's efforts and Gemini, matched with a sort of productivity dashboard that's quite ahead of what the iPhone is doing. Apple's edge, though, is that in my experience, OPPO isn't the most timely of software updates, and 5 years of support isn't as legendary as what Apple provides. It's for sure a matter of taste. I do prefer the iPhone's bolder approach to the lock screen, the new photo gallery, plus Apple's ecosystem, but that's my biased opinion. Thing is, in what matters most during day-to-day use, I don't think you'll notice much of a difference. Yes, the Find X9 Pro has a pretty awesome ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, but Face ID remains the gold standard. They both have fast and fluid software experiences, and both include vapor chamber cooling systems, so any hardcore gamers will find the top-notch experience on either, with tons of accessories to support them. I couldn't tell much of a difference in phone calls as I tested them on Google Fi, with no areas where I noticed the Find X9 Pro limited in antenna support. That being said, where the OPPO just beats the pants off the iPhone is, of course, in endurance. I've nailed more than 2 days on the Find X9 Pro with ease, while the iPhone is more of a day and a half experience if you tax it hard. But alright, let's get into the main event, these cameras. Both phones have a triple camera system with sensors of identical footprint on the primary, though with variations in speed, megapixel count, and focal length. The iPhone has a slightly superior ultra-wide in both sensor size and wider focal length, but man, the telephoto on the OPPO is massive when compared to the iPhone, not just in the amount of megapixels, but also in footprint. And sure, Apple owns the selfie story with its center stage versatility, but we've got a ton of megapixels from OPPO, and then each has its own formula of unique sensors, from LiDAR on the iPhone to the spectral sensor on OPPO for accurate color temperature. And yeah, both even have a camera control button of sorts, with similar functionality. The results, though, is where the scale tilts back and forth. During the day, it's important to note that while Apple is doing Fusion 24-megapixel results, the Find X9 Pro claims to be an industry first to shoot in 50 megapixels by default. I say claims, though, because like the OnePlus 15, this is a bit of a cocktail. 26 megapixels is what I noticed most, with some cases in darker scenarios where it would jump to 12. That said, wow, I love this Hasselblad color science. Surely you can mimic it before or after the fact on the iPhone color profiles, but I do love the character OPPO brings by default. You'll notice both phones are comparable in dynamic range regardless of the focal length. I'd even say detail is pretty comparable, but the rare occasions where 50 megapixels kicked in on the OPPO were pretty epic in its favor. And then I do feel the Find X9 Pro owns night photography. The phone isn't just faster at taking the shot, but the added detail is just hard to argue with. Both struggle the same with moving subjects, but for the most part, I think OPPO rescues harsh scenarios better regardless of the focal length, even if, yeah, keep in mind some of the results will end up being a bit cartoony, though, yeah, such is the case with the iPhone as well. But that's where things get interesting once you look into this Hasselblad teleconverter, which is capable of giving you 10x optical zoom, but then can go up to 40x in some sort of digital combination, meaning a crazy 230mm equivalent and up to 930mm. Surely there are third-party accessories for the iPhone, but I'm not even going to bother showing you the results because they don't work with the native camera app, and so that's kind of a mess once you look into third-party options. I mean, seriously, just look at these concert results from the OPPO. There's simply no way to make this comparison against the iPhone and make it fair. To give you a bit of context, if I wanted to buy an equivalent lens with results this good from my full-frame mirrorless Sony camera, that would be between $2,000 to $4,000, where I've seen this native OPPO kit for around $250 on eBay, and the results just prove that this is worth every single penny. I also think OPPO wins in portraits and selfies with more natural results and separation. I mean, the company has full Hasselblad modes for them, and it shows in the final results once you blow them up into a monitor. I do have to give it to Apple for its versatility on its squared image sensor, for sure though. It does lead to wider results that I find more useful in certain scenarios. And then, listen, finally, if you're looking for an Android phone with the best video quality that totally compares with this iPhone, well, this is it. Stacked next to the 17 Pro Max, I'd say these results are just as good if you enable HDR. The shadows don't fall apart, stabilization is good, and the codec itself lends to a very pleasing set of results overall. Even my concert experiments with it have led to me fully trusting this phone, which is not something that I have ever said about an Android phone ever. Heck, even selfie video is just as good with pretty impressive dynamic range and stabilization, with consistency and capabilities across the board, though, yeah, center stage on the iPhone is seriously still hard to beat. The Find X9 Pro then also joins Apple in bringing full support for log video, but with a positive twist. This time it supports all the camera modes, and while Apple forces you to use ProRes on the native camera app, meaning it's either massive files or using the Blackmagic camera app, OPPO by contrast gives you full H.265 support, which is far more efficient as a container and also quite powerful. Overall, these results were pretty impressive, which again is, in my opinion, a first for Android. To conclude, what can I say? I mean, this is the most forbidden fruit comparison in so many ways. On one end, we have the best iPhone Apple has ever made, and on the other, we have a phone that's superior in so many ways, which is crazy to see. In the past, OPPO would either fumble with not having 4K video from the selfie or missing features here and there. That's all finally gone on this generation, and bear in mind we're still waiting on the Ultra to launch next year, which usually happens. That being said, would I recommend that you import the Find X9 Pro? Probably not. I mean, if you can, it's the best of the best, but then again, consider that this is not a comparison against a good phone and a bad one. This is more like great versus greater, and I think that's precisely the point of this video. Have Chinese phones graduated to be better? I'd say yes. Heck, even last year's Find X8 Pro wasn't as good by miles when compared to this one. Are these Chinese phones that much better than an iPhone? I'd say not really, and proof of that is how much they try to copy what Apple is doing. What OPPO has mastered is really what Apple has owned for years, and that's execution. The chip, the sensors, the materials, and the looks are only as good as what these products can do. To that I say bravo OPPO, but also bravo Apple. Though, if I'm honest, I'm already curious to see what these Chinese makers will bring in 2026. Let me know if you agree with my assessment, though, in the comments below, and while you're at it, please like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comments, as I'm sure you see me try to respond to as many as I can. Also, follow me on social media to see more behind-the-scenes work as I try to test these phones on the day-to-day. This is my last video of 2025, but stay tuned, the CES is going to be packed with content. I'm Jaime Rivera. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you for this year of support of me going independent. It really means the world to me. I'll see you on the next one.